Hi, welcome to Behind the Badge. I'm Chief Alan Rodbell of the Scottsdale Police Department. With me is Miss Chris Fasal, our community liaison.
Hi everybody, how are you this month?
So how are we doing?
We're good.
I mean, it's the coldest day of the week. It's 107.
I know. I know.
It's only going to get worse. So hopefully it'll break as this program is progressing through the month.
But the good thing is kids are in school.
Kids are in school, which again,
So,
be careful
that's good.
around
Yeah,
school
that's
zones. We
true.
talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
They're in school, be careful. They're out of school, be careful. Just be careful.
Exactly.
Traffic safety is really important to us in the community, and we are a safe community.
Yes.
And so much going on. I know you have a Citizens Academy coming up, and you're already full.
Yes, I'm full. And actually I had somebody email me today and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get her in, unfortunately, but I would put her in the fall session, in the spring session, because this is the fall session. But yeah, it is full.
Okay. So once
It
again,
fills up quick.
Once again, if anyone's interested, then you need to come in early to get into the next session.
Exactly.
Okay. Sounds good.
So-
Anything else going on?
No, I thought maybe we would say hello to one of our fans.
Yes, please do.
Rose.
Yeah.
Who,
Hey, Rose.
How you doing? Thank you
Shout
so
out.
much for being a watcher of our Behind the Badge program. We really appreciate you, and we appreciate anybody that really watches our program. We thank you very much, and we hope that the program is informative for everybody, and that's why we try to cover several different topics to appease everybody.
And we are always interested in receiving any emails from the general public, the viewing public, that tell us kinds of things they'd like to see on the show.
Absolutely.
By all means, we want to make sure that we're addressing those issues they want us to address.
Exactly.
So, Rose, here's a shout out to you. Thank you so much for your emails. Appreciate that very much.
So, and today we have an excellent program. Our training division is here, and
Yes.
we thought it'd be a really good topic to talk about some of the training issues that the department faces and some of the things that we do.
Yeah, you know, this is a very, very serious topic, of course, and I'm always, whenever I think about this, I always think about some of my experiences in the past. Back when Columbine occurred, it's been 20 years
I know,
this
that
year.
that is unbelievable.
When Columbine occurred, and I was the chief of patrol back in Montgomery County, Maryland at the time, and having been a negotiator in my years of service, we were always trained to kind of contain a threat and negotiate a settlement. And when Columbine occurred, it was a strange animal to us. We had never seen this before, and it was something that we had never prepared for. And so you had an active shooter, or two in this case, who were literally walking through hallways and victimizing students and teachers and employees
School.
alike. And so it was unusual, because typically in the past they would find a spot, hold up, and then we would surround it and again negotiate a peaceful settlement.
Yeah, like a hostage negotiation.
Yes,
correct?
but in this case it was different. So what I had done as chief of patrol is I brought in some tacticians who worked for me on my SWAT team and had moved up the ranks with me, and I brought them in the room and I said, we need to find a solution to this. That this is a strange animal, and we did a test, and the officers during the test did a beautiful setup of what would be a barricade situation. They surrounded the school. They called for the SWAT team to come out. The whole time the exercise was taking place, we sort of had them visualize what was going on inside the hallways. And so we had to change that whole mindset. And so we created a training program, how to go through the hallways and how to go after a threat and of course, deal with it.
It just like
effectively.
9/11, it changed policing forever.
Yeah, and so what we actually developed in Montgomery County actually ended up in the International Association of Chiefs of Police magazine, and it really is the model that a lot of police departments around the nation have adapted for how they respond to these incidents. And quite frankly, our department, when I came here, was like, yeah, I get it, I recognize this. And so this has been something the past 20 years that departments have continued to work on, refine, react to the nuances of the various different situations, because they all have little differences.
Absolutely. Approaching, the school zones and all sorts of different things, hazards in traffic and freeways. I mean, every school and city has a different, different tactics that they have to perform.
And we know it's not just schools. It's businesses. It's
Correct.
been movie theaters. It's been, it's been malls. It's been other places, not just in schools. And so it's important that the citizens know just how we prepare as a police
Correct.
department to respond to anything that might happen in our community. And so with that, we have Lieutenant Chris DiPiazzo, who's with our, right now you're assigned to
the downtown district. I'm the executive officer down there.
And so you have some additional responsibilities on top of that. So
I do.
I would ask you, before you introduce our guests, if you would mind first tell us a bit about your background and your current assignment, and then we'll delve right into this issue.
Yeah, Chief. I went to college to be a teacher, moved out to Scottsdale because it's a great city to live in, loved it ever since. As a police officer, I started on patrol. Overall, I've worked about 8.5 years in drug enforcement at one level or another. I was also a member of our SWAT team for a number of years, and I'm currently one of our SWAT alternate team commanders, and I work with our negotiations team. Currently, I'm assigned to the downtown district, which is the area between McDonald and Osborne, and it has the mall, our entertainment district, our downtown area, a number of schools, places of worship. And there I work with all the sergeants and lieutenants and officers in the district to work on patrol strategies and prepare for any events that we may encounter.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Would you introduce your guests?
Yeah, this is Sergeant Rick Burkmeyer. He's with our training unit. And this is Officer Charles Burnett, also with our training unit.
Welcome, gentlemen. Good to see you all.
Thanks for
what you do.
today.
So somehow this is a marriage between someone who has some tactical experience, some experience in negotiations, and is also still working on the street, and our training unit. And together you're developing, or have developed, and are now implementing the training for how the officers would respond to these kinds of incidents, correct?
Yeah, that's correct,
Okay.
Chief.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So over the years, we've always had some version of active shooter training. But like anything else, it has to evolve over time. Kind of like what you discussed, the changes that you guys made back in Montgomery County and brought out here. So as a department, we have to consistently evolve to become more efficient, depending on what threats there might be in the community and what some common trends are. So over the years, we keep moving forward with this program, and we found that the best possible method of training that we've identified is reality-based training. Our training unit puts together a great reality-based training program. So as the downtown lieutenant, I knew that we had some issues to address. Just concerns when it comes to large gatherings. We have a lot of great festivals, our shopping mall, our entertainment area, and the large crowds we have down there. So I reached out to Sergeant Burkmeyer and Officer Burnett to discuss what options we have to train our officers to be more efficient in their response to any potential threat we have.
Thank you.
Great.
Sergeant, a little bit about your background before we get started.
It was a cool day in 1976. Sorry, couldn't resist. I've been thinking about that. Did I rush it?
Good.
Feels like I
That
did
was
good.
perfect.
You did great.
That was good, Sarge.
Just a cool day got me all excited.
Yeah.
So I started back in 2002. I spent a majority of my career, I think 1 year I spent total in investigations. Spent about 8 years, 7-8 years as a patrol officer, promoted to sergeant in 2011. Spent my, so far up until earlier this year, my entire career as a sergeant has been on patrol, a couple different districts, District 2 and then District 1. And I just took over training unit in January of this year. So it's I've been a firearms instructor for the last 10 years, so it's always been coaching, teaching has always been a passion of mine, so it was kind of a natural fit.
Perfect.
Now that's not your only responsibility to the training academy, right, or training center. You do other things besides just firearms instructor.
Yeah, I'm the program manager for the pistol and rifle program, as well as the reality-based training program and the IFRC program that we'll probably get to in a little bit, because we have a lot of reality-based training that was set on that. But those responsibilities are kind of the main thing of what we do. We're trying to put a spin of reality-based or something reality-based in everything that we do, whether it's a quarterly pistol range, a quarterly rifle range, getting different types of targets, a moving target, the simunition rounds to give the officers kind of a different look. So we're trying to teach the principle of responding to an incident like this, and that principle can be applied to simple building clearing as well as an active shooter at a large building.
So you said a couple of things we probably need to clarify for the audience.
Yeah.
It's simunitions. What are simunitions?
Yeah.
So the
Paintball.
simunition, yeah, it's essentially yes.
Paintball.
The simunitions that we use, we have a dedicated blue gun that's on the Glock platform that we use as our service weapons, and so a small paint marker will come out the muzzle. It's obviously a lot slower, but it gives you that feedback. When it hits you, you know that you got hit. So it does a couple different things. One, from the officer perspective, it allows you to train like you would deploy. So you have an actual weapon system that works in the exact same manner that your real system would work, and obviously you're taking away the lethality of it, and there's no other way to train that. On the other side, in the event that an officer is shot on a call for service, a lot of those situations can be fought through, and that gives you that pain compliance that allows you to keep pressing through that to finish the job, especially in an active shooter type environment.
Yeah. And I guess we mentioned the word reality-based training. I think some people might know what just that means. Others might be questioning what is reality-based training. So can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Break it down even further. Like you have actors that come in and you have good dads and bad guys.
Absolutely.
Guys and bad
it depends for the mall scenario like we're talking about, that's a very large scale RBT. We have actors that would play the bad guy. We had actors that would play wounded citizens. We had actors that would actually people from the security forces from the mall that were helping. So you have somebody that would act in various different capacities, and RBT can be as simple as having an actual breaching tool and a door before you go into a building clearing scenario. So it can have small layers, and it can be a small little aspect. Anything that will make training more real other than a very static stationary officer, stationary target, static range. Anything that we can add on top of that, practice like you play, right? And so that's the overall goal.
So it's like a live video game, pretty much, because it kind of has action and people are there and situations that happen, and you have to clear the mall and you have to do all sorts of things.
So we do have the Milo system where it's actually a screen that you can interact with that we would use for decision shoots and decision making, right? Okay. That would be more akin to an actual video game. This puts you in as realistic of a scenario as you can get without the actual injuries.
Yeah.
Thank you. Officer Burnett, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
I've been with the department a little over 12 years. I was in patrol for most of that time. I just came down to the training unit at the same time that Sergeant Burkmeyer did. But I did schooling. I have a degree in intelligence and terrorism studies and have a lot of background in that. Kind of a passion. I grew up during that time. I was a senior in high school when 9/11 took place, so it kind of shaped, I believe, the direction of my life. But I've been kind of a part of the decentralized training program in a lot of different aspects, firearms instructor in different types, reality-based training, taser instructor, so I've kind of touched the gamut of training and the things that we have the abilities to do or bring to bear in situations.
That's great.
So what specifically are you doing at the training unit beyond just this?
Currently, so I'm specifically tasked with reality-based training, coming up with things, so I was contacted by Lieutenant DiPiazza, asked to put on the training that took place at the mall. So I organized that, the logistics behind that, coming up with the ideas.
Which is large.
Yeah.
Very large.
That's a big scenario to stage and to get.
Yeah, it's a big undertaking for a big platform. So,
exactly.
Big footprint of a building. So, but yes, I was tasked with that. So coming up with the different scenarios, given my background and training and research into terrorism and such, I kind of pulled a lot from that of things of recent events that have happened in and around the world or here in the United States to try to give an added level of realism to it, something that officers could expect to come into. So that was kind of the idea behind the training at the mall.
I'm just curious, did any of you guys have military training?
I don't.
I don't.
I went to school for education.
Okay, yeah, you said you were going to be a teacher, which is perfect for this.
Yeah.
So just curious.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about the actual event. So we did one large event. But we do other training as well, and we'll get to that. But we did one large event. Tell us a little bit about how that came about and what that looked like.
So we have off-duty officers that work at the mall on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and they
that
do
work for Scottsdale.
Yep, that work for Scottsdale, and they do that all through the year. Around the holiday season, we have an increased presence. We work it down to about 7 days a week, varying number of officers. So we have a great relationship with the mall. We work with their security force hand in hand, and their management we communicate with on a daily basis. Everything from traffic patterns to parking to any incidents they may have in the mall. So during one of my meetings with mall staff, they asked if we could put on another training for our officers and also for their security. So it started off as just an idea in a meeting. We've done trainings like this in the past, but we wanted to make sure that this was current for our officers when it came to tactics and also when it came to current events in the country that we've been encountering. So after talking with mall management, I reached out to Officer Burnett, and we discussed what the capabilities of the training unit were and the scope of this training exercise. And that's challenging at times. It's challenging because you have to pick hours where the mall's not open. So the mall was great about it. They were able to delay the opening for us a little bit. We were able to bring in some officers that work all different shifts throughout the week, and we're able to get them all in the same place at the same time. Also a challenge at times, people flexing their schedules, but they were able to make it out because we wanted to make sure that officers that work in that area that would theoretically respond to an incident like that would be the ones getting trained. So once we dealt with scheduling and the idea of what we were looking for, what we were looking for was something large scale, something that was that would kind of awe the senses for an officer coming in. The mall's 3 levels. It spans over hundreds of yards in each of their concourses. There's elevators, there's back rooms. So we really wanted to make it as relevant as possible. So we did some facility walkthroughs with the security officers and with a training unit. And we finally put together a plan that we knew would help everybody. We wanted to make all stakeholders kind of gain something out of this, including the actors. The actors we invited in, they all didn't really know what they were stepping into. They've helped us with reality-based training in the past, but every time they help, they kind of take a little bit more out of it. And it's a little more realistic every time they participate.
So are you all testing skill sets that have been trained already, or are you assessing skill sets that may have to be developed, trained to prepare for the future? What did this look like?
So the training unit is consistently putting on quarterly training for our officers, and some officers attend even more frequently than that based on assignments. They've got all different weapons training, tactics training. So we have a lot of building blocks that we knew that the officers had, and reality-based training is a way that we can put all those building blocks together. I think Sergeant Berkmeyer puts it pretty well. It's kind of like in sports. You learn a bunch of different skills, but the only way to put it together without playing a game is to run a scrimmage. And reality-based training is essentially a scrimmage where everybody gets to put together all those building blocks and all of those skills and actually see how it feels, not only with the equipment that we've given them to deploy with, but how it feels for them emotionally going through it. And it also shows them where they have to work a little more. And our training unit does a great job not only planning and putting together the training, but we also do some evaluations on the back end of these trainings.
Yes, I would say, yeah.
And they find ways to improve our systems, improve our building blocks for future events.
So I was going to ask if you can share, what are some of the takeaways as a result of doing an exercise of this magnitude?
I'd say on my end, as the one that asked for help from the training unit, one of the big takeaways is how difficult it is to put together something so large scale, the planning aspect. And I have so much respect for these guys to be able to put together such a big event. It was probably over 100 people when it came to putting this together, from officers all the way through to security and citizens. When it comes to lessons for us, one of the challenges is geography. As officers coming into a mall in a specific wing, knowing exactly where each store was. Everybody speaks a different type of language. Security guards know suite numbers. Officers know east, west, north, and south. A lot of folks that would go there as patrons know the name of the store.
Right.
So everybody's putting out information in almost like a different language. So a big takeaway is knowing that we have to put together maps for our officers that they can put in their cars and their bags. That way, if they have to deploy on an event in the mall where they need to get somewhere quickly, they know where Suite 103 is versus the Macy's or some other location. That was a big takeaway. It's always the little things.
Yeah, and,
it is the little things.
And I don't care how often you shop at some stores, they're continually changing over the interiors. So there's all kinds of nooks and crannies and displays you have to deal with, and that can always be very challenging for law enforcement responding to an emergency.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you a question in terms of you guys and your takeaways and what you're doing with regard to those takeaways.
Want to go first, or shall I? Whatever you'd like.
Just like the lieutenant was saying, one of the biggest things is always going to be communication. The after action of every event that I've ever read, communications can always be improved, whether it's being a little bit more clear, whether it's paying more attention. In a situation like this, it's very easy to walk through a static environment and know the steps that you have to take. Okay, we're going to clear here, we're going to clear here, and you communicate. But when you have external actors, when you have extra noises, when we had the fire alarm going off, when you have actual sound of shots, even though you know it's training, the officers that are participating, it gets that adrenaline going, and that changes the way you think. So if you don't have something as an ingrained tactic, then it may not be there when you're ready for it. So the communication obviously needs to be drilled every time we get the chance to, and the more RBT layers that we add, the more we're going to try and add radio traffic to that, and paying attention to your earpiece that you have, because a lot of people, it's physiological. Absolutely.
Tunnel vision.
It's physiological, like you are going to block that out, you may not hear it, and so it's knowing, instead of getting on your mic and saying something, if I'm from me to you, grab you on the shoulder and make sure I get eye contact. Something simple like that that you may not think of until you're in that situation. But the other thing, as far as I was concerned, is just having more opportunities to do something like this, even on a smaller level. Knowing that we had this set up at the mall, and then we had the IFRC scenario just not that long ago, we have already kind of blocked out the next 18 months of the general themes that we want to hit, whether it's on a smaller scale training at a quarterly pistol range, or our new fall and spring block that have taken the place of modular. So we'll have access to the entire department. Smaller time frame, a little bit more compressed, but again, those principles, we can start making sure that we draw on that communication and making sure that we get that stress inoculation, so the decisions can be made, and we'll test the decision making, give you an opportunity, instead of just knowing that I have to do A, B, and C. What if the option is D and you didn't know it? So we want people to make their own decisions and give them that opportunity to find the path on their own.
One of the beauties of working as an organization and training this way is that oftentimes a scenario is going to be the shift working. They're going to respond as a team. But we also know that officers will self-report, which means they're going to come down without being asked to come down. They may already be in the facility, may be off duty and shopping with their families. So you're going to have a number of people coming there that aren't necessarily part of the team that's practiced together, but if they understand the common language of the tactics, they can quickly fall into being a member of that team. And that's why it's so critical, because it may not be a mall, it could be a hospital, it could be a school, it could be a business, but it's still a building, it's still a building search, it's still going after a threat safely down the hallway as a team. And so one of the beauties is, as we continue to train all of us, is that at any given moment we can come together as a group.
Well, and this is like why it's so important if people come to Citizens Academy, because as you know, Sarge, we bring the Citizens Academy down to the range, and they do FATS, or the Milo, which is the video game where you have to do a no shoot or shoot situation. And I don't think that people understand when we talk about tunnel vision and how, you know, the officer is focused on stopping that threat, which is what I think you were talking about. Until somebody's in that position, they don't understand. And it is so amazing every time people come through Citizens Academy that have never done that. It's like, if you're not a mom, you don't know what it's like to be a mom until you have a child. It's the same way when they go through this scenario, they're like, oh my, they are, even though they know it's fake, their adrenaline is high, and they kind of get that tunnel vision, which is what we want citizens to understand about policing, because you know when the media gets a hold of something, it's always usually negative about policing, and we want the citizens to understand what you guys are going through. It's not as easy as people think.
Yeah, the context is important.
So we've done exercises similar to this one at hospitals and at schools, and so we're doing a lot more practicing and preparation. What are the next steps for you gentlemen?
We have the next thing that we have, our quarterly for this year, is going to be a single officer kind of force on force scenario. That's going to build into spring of next year, where we're going to do single, double, and more officer entries into a building, and some open field movement with, that's one of the things that sometimes gets neglected. We get so focused on a building or a type of like a workplace that we forget something like happened in Gilroy, California. That was a wide open space, or even in I think it was Dayton, Ohio, that was in a bar district, but it was outside. And so the principles they still remain, but we need to give officers a little different look, so they can always go back into that mental Rolodex and say, I've seen this before. The first time you think about something shouldn't be your first time in that environment. So if we can at least expose them to it and get them thinking down that path, then that shortens that decision-making cycle, and then they're able to react quicker.
That's cool. And anything else, officer, that you would like to add to that?
Yeah, just so kind of with everything that we've done so far, kind of my role in it is that I'm looking for the failure points in either the skill sets or the principles, a breakdown in the principles that we teach. Again, that foundation, those foundational building blocks. Because when I find those, my role as a trainer, as a coach, is to address those specifically and then to build upon those to find ways to better teach those principles. So that way that officer, that group of officers better understand that. So that way in the future, the next time that they do it, again, like Sergeant Burkmeyer said, it's not the first time that they've seen it. They're going to perform better. And that's the whole point of training, is to continually increase our performance levels. Because again, in the situation, we're not going to rise to the occasion, we're always going to fall to our level of training. So we want to provide the most optimal and the best and most realistic training that we can. So that way when, the bullets are flying and there are people, dying and bleeding around us and such, we can focus, we can stop the threat, we can neutralize that threat, so that way we can then begin saving lives.
Mm-hmm. That's so important.
Yes.
Great way of finishing the segment.
Yeah, I want to thank you all, not just for being on the TV show today, but also doing what you're doing. You're ensuring we have the appropriate response, the skill sets to make sure it's a successful response and to protect our community. And so thank you guys for what you do every day. Thanks for your leadership in the downtown. That's a very challenging district with all the moving parts, and the fact it's almost a 24/7 district with all the activities after dark. So thank you for that. And I think what we're going to do maybe is we'll talk about it next time in regard to, from a citizen standpoint, what we tell citizens as we go out in the community and talk to citizens about how they can make themselves safe in a situation.
Right, we'll try to train them from the perspective of the officers, training them what would be best for them to do should they find themselves in a situation like this, which is kind of a really good takeoff of what we had. But thank you guys so much. Thank you for hosting us down at Citizens Academy. I know that can be kind of, it's like, what? You're going to give citizens, like our guns, and we're going to, but yeah, so I appreciate it.
Right?
They get to keep them. They get to keep them.
So they don't get to keep them, okay, but to at least train with them. So we really appreciate that so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Well, that does it for another month of Behind the Badge. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to next month, and until then, be safe. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.